Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another Market Open. It is Monday, July 8th, 8:45 a.m. Everyone in the chat who was betting that it would be 8:46, nope, 8:45. It's a new week. We're starting out fresh and we're starting out on time today. We're just going to get started, folks. Palantir Technologies, ticker symbol PLTR, if you did not know the ticker symbol, is up 2.75% in the markets of the pre, $27.98, $27.99, $28 as I'm trying to get a solid price on it in the pre-market. Pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. So I want to talk about why this is happening. This will be our first segment to start off. This is going to be a pretty exciting week. We got a lot going on this week. NVIDIA is pumping this market. They got a new upgrade, of course. Last week, they actually got the first downgrade. And the downgrade wasn't like the worst downgrade in the world. It's just like every bank disagrees with like the logic of the downgrade. So we'll talk about that. TSM is pumping this morning because they got some new upgrades and upgrades as well, along with some new news about their chips. Tesla short sellers are down $5.7 billion in the past week. Tesla's short float is the highest it's ever been at 3.84% since 2021. So Tesla's got to make a decision this week about where it's going to go, and those short sellers are going to have to make a decision on if they cover that short. Jerome Powell will be testifying in Congress tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Thursday we get CPI. So very convenient for him to have to be berated by Congress. We will be live streaming that the entire time on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday, we get CPI. If that CPI is good, then the July momentum we're seeing probably does continue. So we'll see what happens there with CPI. And then on top of that, we also have bank earnings this week. So Delta and Pepsi are going to start on Thursday. And then on Friday, we have JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Citigroup. Those are going to be very important. I want to talk about my thoughts on what those bank earnings are going to look like and how those bank earnings will ultimately implicate the rest of the stock market. So thank you all for being here. Excited to get ready into another week. I think let's start off with Palantir. So why is Palantir up at $28 in the pre-market? Can someone or anyone in the chat let me know? I have my own theories, and I'm obviously going to discuss my theories, but I would love to know what the chat is thinking. Good morning, everyone. Gene, Jeff, Jay, Kaiser, Alex, what's up? What's up, June? Why do you guys think $28 is being achieved in the pre-market? At one point, apparently someone told me in the overnight markets, Palantir was at 28.31. So I fell asleep around like 1 a.m. And before I went to sleep, this is what I saw, 27.82. And I was like, oh, wow. So this was on 300,000 shares of volume. And I felt, well, the market's definitely getting excited for Palantir. And obviously they're showing their excitement by giving it a 2% premium in the overnight markets. And then as I woke up, we're past $28. At one point, we even hit like, I think 28.15 or something in the pre-markets. And we're up 30%. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? I'm looking. Gene says to piss off Chris. We had a really good Palantir weekly episode. If you guys didn't watch that, so that was on a Friday. Definitely make sure to check that out because Chris actually came on to the episode unscripted and he gave his bear case. And personally, you know, I love Chris. I do not think it was a good bear case, and it gave me a little bit more conviction in my thesis. But it was a good thing to kind of just like level head you and kind of check your overall bullishness as well. Someone said because Alex Karp is a legend. That's amazing. Someone said because Palantir is a hot hawk Tua. She's actually becoming famous, dude. Like she's like getting her own reality show. Like she's legit taking this to the next level. So someone says also because of upgrades. Now, ironically, and this is what gets us into our first conversation of the day, it's not an upgrade Palantir got today. It's actually a theoretical downgrade. So instead of being a sell rating by Tyler Radke, who is a Citi analyst, we got a neutral rating. Now, that's good, right? Neutral is better than sell. It's worse than buy, but it's better than sell. However, his research note was actually not that good for Palantir. It wasn't bearish. It wasn't overly bullish. It was just concerned. And so I want to go through what he said from Citigroup today. Tyler Radke, for those that don't know, this is the guy that at $10, he hated Palantir. Like he really did not like Palantir at all. So he's had to obviously change his tone as the company has performed, boot camps done well, all that good stuff. But here were his core points from his research note that he put out this morning. Palantir is up in spite of this research note not really being the most bullish for the company. So number one, he said AIP go-to-market seems to be accelerating dramatically with more boot camps, indicating that U.S. commercial is growing well. Also, they indicated that U.S. commercial is mainly in New York City, and the New York City office attendance is now achieving pre-pandemic levels. So pretty much everyone is coming in because there's obviously a lot of work to do to scale AIP. Now, the problem is, although AIP's go-to-market is strong, Citi is unconvinced that the monetization is ramping up at the same rate. I'll talk about that in a second. Number two, he's doubtful on massive government growth, even with the latest government contracts. I'll talk about that in a second as well. And then finally, they moved from a sell to a neutral, but they believe the stock's valuation, trading at approximately 24 times next 12 months enterprise value to sales, also at 28 times price to sales, makes it difficult for Citi to identify positive near-term catalysts. Okay, cool. So these are the three concerns that Citi has. I'm going to take them one by one. First, on the valuation. Look, they're right on the valuation. At the end of the day, it is very difficult, I would think, from any bank to, I mean, even Bank of America, if you ask them right now, do you think there are super positive near-term catalysts? Bank of America would probably, like, outside of earnings, there's not. So here's the question. I talked about this in the Daily Palantir episode that's going to come out in a few hours, but the question is going to be, this run-up to $27, $28, is this run-up baking in everything we're going to see in earnings? Palantir 28.05 in the pre-market. Is this run-up baking in the momentum on earnings, just like we went from 22 to 25 the day before Q1 earnings, and then we're going to follow with a dump because the earnings can't live up to these lofty expectations? Or is big money getting very excited because they know something about Palantir that retail doesn't know yet, and they're buying the crap up out of the stock? Kind of what's happening with Tesla, even though a little bit different situation because Tesla was down year to date. Palantir is up at this point almost 70% year to date. Is big money buying up the stock, and they believe Q2 earnings are going to like absolutely smash expectations, and the street's going to be able to justify this multiple, if not expand this multiple, because of the value of earnings? And that's the question I have for everyone in the chat. Do you guys think this run-up is premature, meaning it's FOMO, essentially? There's nothing sort of fundamental towards it, going from basically $22 to $28. And on earnings, there's a high probability for a dump if we don't perform at the strongest of levels. Meaning, what do I mean by that? I mean, we're expected to $650 million in revenue. The street's kind of pricing for if we reported like a $685 million quarter. I don't know if we beat earnings by $30 million on revenue. We're going to be profitable. Obviously, it's not going to be a massive earnings per share beat because, you know, we're still using treasury income and from the T-bills to be able to generate GAAP profitability. But still, on revenue, I think is what the street really cares about. Do you think we're going to beat by that type of level? Or is the street so excited that they know we're going to beat, or even if we don't beat by that dramatic of a level, we're still going to beat pretty nicely? Therefore, they're pricing this in. And even if it doesn't tank after earnings, it doesn't go up after earnings, it stays in this 27, 28 range, which means they're just front running the earnings momentum. I think that's the question. I think that's the question for everybody. And that's what I think we're going to have to figure out at the end of the day. Or is it strictly technical? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big accounts on Twitter that are talking about the cup and the handles and, you know, why Palantir is ready to be in a breakout phase. Sure, that's fine. The point is, it's broken out to me. I mean, it was stuck at 22. Now we broke out to 28. Do we break out to 30, 34? Maybe. But also at some point, I think fundamentals have to play a role if you're talking about that big of a move, especially with a company that has 2 billion shares outstanding, 2.2 billion. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But I think that's the existential question. My answer is that I don't know the answer. I really don't know. I've been saying for a long time that Q2 earnings are going to have to show that they are a true AI SaaS player and that it's very difficult for the market to disagree with them. And maybe that is the reason the market's giving them a premium, because they think they're better than Salesforce and Snowflake and all these other companies in terms of an AI SaaS go-to-market and moat. But Palantir is going to have to show on Q2 that that's solidified. I just don't know if they're definitely going to prove that and then we expand to $30 and we break out, or they don't prove that and we get back to 26, 28 or 25, which still isn't, you know, it would still be up 50% year to date. It would just take a little bit of a breather. So I guess we're going to see. We're going to see how that plays out. Now, on his other note, so in the context of AIP go-to-market not having the monetization cycle, I think this argument, it doesn't matter. So anytime a bank says, well, Citi is unconvinced that, you know, AIP is monetizing, that's okay. I mean, that's actually what you want to see. You want to see Palantir grab attention, grab companies, and then monetize them later. Quite frankly, it's the Amazon book appeal, right? Or the Amazon book strategy. Like start selling books, start selling products that have very low margins, if anything, no margins. Give, you know, free year subscription of Prime to people. Get them so hooked into the ecosystem that now whenever they need anything, they don't think about going to Walmart. They think about buying from Amazon. It is the basic approach of being a loss leader until You're not a loss leader. And I think Palantir right now, they're making about $3 million per client with AIP. Bank of America thinks that goes to 3.7 to 4 million in the next couple of years. If Palantir can get 1,000 clients today, lose money, even if they become unprofitable again, I wouldn't give a shit. If the street tanked at 40%, I would buy that all day, because if you believe in the fundamental thesis and the value of the company, and you understand the products of Ontology and AIP and Foundry, then you have a better understanding of saying, okay, they're going to monetize eventually, just like they did with Tampa General, getting that 7-year, $50 million deal. It's just going to take some time. And in that time is where all the alpha is, because that's where the street doesn't recognize when the monetization is coming. And that's going to be exciting. And so if that happens, I think that's going to be really interesting to see. So to me, that argument doesn't make that much sense. Not that it doesn't make sense. It's a fair critique. It's just not an original or unique argument that, oh, they're not making that much money off of this. It's like, yeah, but like, the point is not to make money. The point is to really get these clients hooked in to the point where Eaton signs a 5-year deal, Tampa General signs a 7-year deal, Coles Australia signs a 3-year deal. Like, the goal is to get these guys hooked. And then finally, he said they're doubtful on massive government growth, even with the latest government contracts. I also think this is fair critique. This is a very fair critique that we don't know when government growth is coming. However, this is the reason why Mariana is one of the best analysts on Palantir, because she's a defense analyst as much as she is a software analyst. And her argument is that when Palantir does get these contracts, like the $480 million contract we got for Project Maven, it's sole sourced. There's no competition. We got 31% of the contract, $153 million was achieved in the first year. So it's not like it's a $96 million per year contract. We're getting 31% of this $480 million in year one, meaning the government really wants to use the contract, and they're probably going to expand this $480 million to a lot more money in the future. And even if we don't get another big $480 million contract in the next couple months, when we do get that money, because the U.S. is going to be spending more than 1% of their defense budget on software and AI, and we know that increase in spend is coming, Palantir is probably going to be a beneficiary. So as a result of that, the lack of clarity on government growth, although it is a concern, I don't think it's the biggest concern. And that's why, I don't think the street cares about this downgrade. Right here, there are the major events we got over the past quarter: 1,300 boot camps, Maven contracts, space partnerships with Starlab and Voyager, first ever contract from the youngest U.S. public health agency for $19 million, Tampa General 7-year extension for $50 million, Eaton 5-year extension. We hosted the 4th AIP Con, expecting $650 million in Q2 revenues, up from $633 in Q1. So again, I think the street's making it pretty obvious. They don't give a shit about this pseudo downgrade we got this morning. If they did care, the stock would not be up 3%. The question is the stock up 3% because retail is just jumping in and they're excited and they're scared? I got a lot of DMs over the week saying, hey, I'm scared. I feel like I missed the train on Palantir. I'm getting in. Quite frankly, when you get those DMs, that does mean that there's a little bit too much FOMO. And so I think there is, a ton of FOMO that's kind of ramping up into the stock. But that FOMO might be rewarded if Palantir crushes on Q2. The fundamental question is, will they crush on Q2? The good thing about being long is you kind of don't care, right? Like, if they don't crush, you buy the dip. If they do crush, you sit back and you're like, all right, well, I think the stock's worth 250 in the next 10 years, so I don't really care about selling at 35. And even if it jumps from 35 back down to 22, at the end of the day, I buy that dip. So if you're long, I think that's the way you relieve a lot of stress. If you have options on this and you have some calls that you bought, definitely you're going to be in the money on some of these calls soon. And if you want to take profits on that, that's, something reasonable to do. If you have covered calls, I would just roll out. I mean, the easiest roll, I think, is like $35 in December or $40 in December, even if you have to pay a little bit of a net debit and you might lose some money. If you don't think the stock's worth $40, which would be another, 30% increase in the next couple months, then you can probably save your shares just by rolling it out. So, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting to kind of see how this plays out. Do we know when earnings are? No, we don't. It's probably going to be in August first month. Robin is August 7th. I would imagine Palantir is within that same time frame. So basically, we have 5 weeks until this plays out. And we'll see. Z Sama says, I work at a gas station and slowly I'm converting my lottery customers into Palantir stockholders. This is, dude, I relate to this so much because my dad had a liquor store and I would see all these people come play the lottery. Now, at 10 years old, when I was helping run the liquor store, I had no idea about Palantir or the stock market or anything. I don't even think Palantir was public. But if I was working at the gas station at this stage, or at that stage, if I understood about the stock market, I would definitely be telling some of these lotto customers, hey, you're spending $20 a day here. You could be getting a share of a company every single day instead of paying the lottery. So that's good. That's good. That's definitely a good way to get people into the stock market. Amog says, I love Palantir, but this is now full FOMO and crash at some point. Patrick says, amidst sell-off, these $40 January 2026 calls I've been accumulating or hold, I'm leaning towards holding. If you have a $40 Jan 2026 strike, I don't know if we get to 40 by Jan 2026, but I do think we get closer to 40 than closer to 20 in Jan 2026. So those are in the money nicely. Let me know how much you're up on those percentage-wise. We could definitely have a crash back to 23, and those obviously could get unprofitable. But because you've got so much time on it, I personally don't see the necessity to sell, especially if you got those at a good price. And then again, for Amag, who says this is full on FOMO and crash, maybe it's a FOMO and crash. I mean, this is the hard part about the markets, right? We don't know if this is FOMO and crash and this goes from 28 to 23, or this breaks out to 32 and then it develops a base at 28, right? And it falls back to 28 or 27. But now if you're stuck at 27 or 28 for the next 7 months, I don't think anyone cares. I mean, like that means we're up a lot and we've priced in a lot of gains in the future. And now, people are probably up on their positions, even if you have an average of 22, 23. So in general, I don't think any of us know if it's FOMO and crash. I'm not going to be cocky enough to be like, oh, this is FOMO and crash, or be cocky enough to be like, no, guys, we're breaking out to 35. But I did feel at $25, this was ready to break out. And we've been seeing this every single day. It just felt like it touched 26, came back down, touched 26, came back down. I was like, all right, we're going to break out from here. But now we really broke out. And the question is, are we going to really break out, or are we going to, take a breather? And I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. Philip says a lot of top callers. This thing is going to roll to 33, at least never low 20s again. Yeah. The one thing about that, there are a lot of people calling a top on Palantir, just like there were a lot of people calling the top on NVIDIA. Now, the one difference here, I see some, YouTube videos, Palantir is the next NVIDIA. Those make me cringe a lot because at the end of the day, NVIDIA is putting up growth that is astronomical. And like for anyone to say any stock is the next NVIDIA, the growth has to be there to match that. The growth is not there for Palantir to match NVIDIA's growth, not even by the slightest, right? And that's okay. That's like, it's not supposed to happen this quickly. NVIDIA took a long time to get there, but I don't know if there's NVIDIA level growth that just comes out of nowhere. And when it does, I think the stock price will accurately reflect that because Palantir has a very big audience and people want exposure to the stock. But at this rate, until the growth gets there, then we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see how that plays out. Okay, cool. Shock City says only 215 PE. So for those concerned about the PE, again, we had this discussion on Palantir Weekly. The PE is not something to be that concerned about. It is one way to value a stock. And for a company that's barely profitable like Palantir, that's getting most of their net income from treasury bills, using the PE as a justification for why the stock is quote unquote overvalued, I think is just not the right way to look at it. If that was the case, you would miss out on many stocks over the past decade. The question to me more so is revenue top line growth over PE, right? Because if revenue growth goes to like, let's say 15%, right now it's at 21%. Let's say it dips to 15% next quarter or in the next 2 quarters. Then you could say it's overvalued, not just from a PE perspective, but because the market is pricing in so much growth and the overall momentum on the stock is not matching that growth, even if they are quote unquote profitable, that it's hard to come up with a conclusive understanding. Even if adjusted operating margins are going up, that does not translate to what a SaaS company needs to grow like. But if we expand growth, which means the PE naturally will come down, but even if the PE doesn't come down dramatically because net income doesn't grow as dramatically, the expansion of growth to me is the most important thing. And if we get a stronger expansion of growth, then we're probably going to see more momentum in the context of Palantir. Cool. So that's what we got right now. $28 or $27.98 in the pre-markets. All eyes in 27 minutes are going to be on Palantir, up 2.74%. I would not be surprised if this thing breaks out to $29 today and the momentum kicks in, especially because NVIDIA is up, the S&P is up. We're going to talk about the rest of the market in a second. Or if this takes a breather to $26, $25 or maybe low 27s and just chills out there. The fact that we closed above 27 last Friday was very important for the stock. Now the question is, can we, make new highs? And as far as I can tell in the pre-market, the market wants to go higher. So my guess would be that we go higher, but we're going to see what happens in the next 27 minutes. Okay, cool. Yes, there was an Athenia and Palantir deal as well. I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow. That came out. A lot of people missed that. That's not like a direct Palantir deal, but Palantir worked on a platform called Athenia, and they got a new partnership with another company. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow and going more in depth in that. The short interest on Palantir is 4%. I think it's actually less than 4%. Let me check real quick. It's like 70 million shares, dude. The shorts want nothing to do with Palantir, and that's because Karp told them that they're cocaine addicts, and they were like, yeah, we're just not going to touch this stock. This is not the right stock to touch. The short float is 3.75%. So short float is inconsequential. It really doesn't matter. What matters is Q2 earnings. Like Palantir has pretty much everything going for them. They have the street on their side. They have the right price targets. They have the bearish analysts that were, bearish 2 years ago that have started to become bullish. They have the AI tailwind. They don't have the shorts holding down the stock. They literally just need to crush earnings. And if they do that, they're going to win. If they don't, the stock will fall. And I think that's okay, right? Because the ball's in their court. If the stock falls and you believe in the fundamental story, it'll be an easy buy the dip. If they crush, then the stock should reflect that momentum. And we'll see what happens going into the next month. All right, cool. So that's what we got in the world of Palantir. Let's move on to some macro. So we've got a lot of news in the broader macro ecosystem. Oppenheimer has raised their year-end price target on the S&P. This is another one that bites the dust to $5,900. Up from $5,500, along with an increased earnings projection for the index. They say an innovation cycle that could benefit all 11 sectors of the S&P 500, not just tech, that shows signs of being both cyclical and secular, coupled with cross-generational demographics needs that suggest a shift in mindset regarding equities that appears driven, adds and are further support in the case for equities at this time. This was a whole hodgepodge of a bunch of words in this paragraph that I just said. Even as I'm reading it, I'm like, I don't even know what they're saying. But the point is, their argument is we're going higher. And so why are we going higher? I think there's a couple of reasons we have to pay attention to this week. First of all, oil is starting to come back down, which is a really nice thing to see. And hopefully CPI shows that oil in the month of June was not as elevated, even though it was higher than it was in May. So oil right here down to $82. The 10-year last Friday dipped right back to 4.2. We were stuck at 4.4. It's up slightly right now in the pre-market, but 4.273. Why does this matter? This matters because unemployment went to 4.1. And because unemployment went to 4.1, that unemployment rate going to 4.1 means that the Fed swaps, which is a financial derivative, priced in 2 more rate cuts. And those 2 rate cuts led to the 10-year coming down, which is very, very important for the broader market. Rate cuts are not the most bullish for the entire economy, just in general, historically, what has happened after we get a rate cut. But there is a Goldilocks zone of when rate cuts happen, certain stocks will benefit. And if the Fed can figure out this soft landing scenario, maybe the entire economy will benefit from rate cuts as well. Nvidia is up 1% in the pre-market at $127. The S&P 500 closed at a record last week. S&P 500 right now, 555.3 in the pre-markets. Pretty damn incredible on the broader S&P. And so we're going to see how that plays out as we get into the market open. Rocket Lab is up 1%, trying to touch $5 at $4.93. Robinhood, $22.79. Nvidia, $127. Tesla down 1.48%. We'll talk about Tesla in a second. PayPal is up a little bit. Bitcoin fell last night to 53,517. So Bitcoin did not have the best weekend, but it rebounded up about 4% right now at 57,339. At one point, it was at 58,485. So like instead of the crypto stocks being down in the pre-market, some of them are down, but a lot of them have actually recovered because Bitcoin kind of made a little bit of a recovery. Coinbase is up 1%, CleanSpark's up 1%, Riot's up 1%, Iren is up 2%, Cypher's up 1%, MicroStrategy's up 2%, Robinhood up about 0.5%, then Bitfarms up 1.87% as well. Ethereum above 3,048 as well right now. So that's what we got in the context of Bitcoin. Now, Nvidia gets an upgrade today, along with Oppenheimer on the entire S&P. And Nvidia's upgrade came from UBS. So UBS raised it to 150 from 120. Our recent supply chain checks confirms that our prior suspicions that demand momentum for Blackwell rack scale systems remains exceedingly robust. Now, this is a very important thing that they're saying on Nvidia. Did I get TNA? No, I don't have any TNA. My TNA options never filled. TNA, for those that don't know, is a triple leverage fund on IWM. Never got it because options never filled. But IWM really is not moving. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that we don't have any TNA, because it's up a little bit in the pre-market, but IWM has relatively been flat the majority of the year. So this comment by UBS is really important, right? Because the downgrade that Nvidia got, which is why its stock was red on Friday, but then it rebounded to green, from New Street Research, was that they believe, New Street, they were the only firm on Wall Street to believe that demand is outpacing, expectations are outpacing demand. So they were the first company to be like, or the first firm to be like, you know what? We don't think that Nvidia is going to live up to these expectations. Every other firm disagrees with them. Dan Ives even issued a statement that says we vehemently disagree with New Street Research, and we think demand is going to match expectations, if not supersede expectations. So UBS says our recent supply chain checks confirm our prior suspicions that demand momentum for Blackwell, which is their newest chip, systems remains exceedingly robust. And if that's the case, you're probably going to get some more momentum on NVIDIA, which is a really good thing in the context of the broader stock. And that's probably why the stock is up right now. Now, TSM also had some benefits right now. Morgan Stanley raised their price targets in 2025. And they said that JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley said that they believe that there is going to be even higher chip demand for TSM, and particularly because of Apple's upgrade cycle, which is why Apple also is hitting all-time highs in the pre-market. So you got IWM at 202. You got TSM, which is basically $50 billion away from being a $1 trillion company, $954 billion market cap, 190 right now, up 3.42% in the pre-market. At $200, I believe it touches $1 trillion. And Apple following suit. Apple was at 226 on Friday. Apple now at 227 in the pre-markets, again, based on this idea that AI is going to be accessed via the consumer from the new iPhone 16. Apple putting in a big order for TSM chips because they believe they're going to sell 100 million iPhone 16 units within the first couple months. So the street's just basically saying, all right, at that point, if you're that bullish, then we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. And at a 35 PE with 0% growth, the street believes that that growth is going to probably start to happen soon. So really interesting stuff in the broader market for Apple, TSM, and a lot of these tech stocks that are continuing to do well. Now, all of the Mag 7 in the pre-market also continue to do well. Google's down a little bit. Amazon's down a little bit. NVIDIA's up. Tesla, we'll talk about them in a second. They're down. Microsoft just went red, down 0.04%. Apple is up, and Meta at $543 is up. Someone on Wall Street bets is up 800 grand on Meta. They're probably up even more now on Meta. And that's primarily because they bought a lot of in-the-money options probably 2 weeks ago. It seems like that's when they bought them. And all of these options have printed. I mean, if you look at these strikes, 502, 500, 492, 502, 485, all of these have printed. And they've printed effectively because Meta got upgraded to about 550. And now it's at 540. Two reasons why Meta's up. Number one, election advertising seems like it's going to start to ramp up, and that's going to be a tailwind for not only Meta, but also Google. And number two is an independent study found that June was their best month in terms of Instagram engagement in a long time. And so the advertising monetization off of that engagement probably is going to do better for Meta, and that's going to lead to upsized growth. Also, the CapEx concerns about how they're spending so much money on CapEx, no one really cares about that anymore. In fact, even the market caring about that back in what was it? In April, it seems kind of silly now because all that money that they're spending on CapEx and GPUs, that's going to help their bottom line. But for some reason, the market was concerned about that. And if that was the case, Meta in the low 400s. And so we're seeing some momentum right now in the context of Meta. Yeah, who bought the dip on Meta earnings? Let me know. Who bought the dip at that? It got to 398 for like a second, and then it bounced up to 400, and then it stayed at 400 for a good couple of basically weeks without breaking out to 500. Okay, Tesla. Let's talk about Tesla. So the interesting thing about Tesla is that they closed above 250 for the first time in about 7 months on Friday. We needed a $27 close on Palantir. We got that. And we needed a $250 close on Tesla, and we got that. Now it's down a little bit in the pre-market. A couple of things on Tesla. Again, the shorts are down about $5.7 billion, which is it's just really funny, dude. Like shorts have not been down this much in Tesla for a long time because the shorts were winning on Tesla. The short float is now 3.84%. This is the highest since 2021 on Tesla. But the shorts are down, even though the short float is the highest it's ever been. It seems like the shorts are starting to pile in because they believe that, Tesla is starting to get a little bit out of hand. Now, what I said over the weekend, which it was a very interesting theory. Unfortunately, this theory has been proven false, is because remember when Tesla CEO Elon followed Travis Kalanick from Uber? My thought, based on some of the stuff I saw, was like, what if they hired Travis Kalanick to be who was the former founder of Uber, CEO of Uber, to be the new CEO of Tesla's robotaxi division? It would make a lot of sense if you think about it. I mean, this was complete rumors. There was no evidence, but kind of through my speculation, I was like, well, if you got the founder of Uber, who's built out a multi-$100 billion fleet of vehicles, he built out Uber from a $5 million company to a $100 billion company. Who else on the planet would be better to run the the robotaxi division. It would have to be someone like Travis Kalanick. And then Elon followed him. Maybe on 8/8, they're going to announce that the former CEO of Uber, who sold all of his Uber shares, he doesn't like Uber because they ousted him from the company. He would be the guy running the robotaxi division. I actually thought this was a reasonable thing to assume because it also meant that this could explain the run-up. Maybe some Wall Street funds found out that Travis was coming back, and I think this guy would be the perfect guy to run the company, or to run this part of the company, and that's why they bought up the stock. Unfortunately, this is not true. So Elon said this is false. The rumor that Uber's founder was hired to run Tesla's robotaxi division was false. Now, not only did he say false to Travis being the CEO of the robotaxi division, in this tweet by car dealership guy, he says to advise Tesla's upcoming robotaxi division, basically being a consultant. Elon said false. So either Elon's just saying it to shut down the rumor, but it is true, and Elon doesn't want the world knowing about it yet, or Elon legitimately is not consulting with the former CEO of Uber to get this done. I really wish that this was real and this was happening. I think that would really explain the justification for why it's run up, but that's not been the case. So my question to the chat is, why do you think the stock has run up 84% from the lows? I think we've seen stocks break out of a range and we've seen them run up. This is not just breaking out of a range. I mean, this is adding $300 billion of market cap within 2 weeks. And in my opinion, I refuse to believe that's technical, that's a cup, or that's a handle. I think that there is smart money, like big institutional money, not the Wells Fargos of the world that have a $120 price target, but maybe the Bernsteins or the RBCs of the world that are like, hey, we need to get more excited about something going on with Tesla. Either they know something or they feel something's happening. And that's why the stock is up as much as it is. Obviously, it's not retail. There's no way in hell retail could pump the stock up 45% in 2 weeks. Otherwise, they would have done that when the stock was at 140, right? That's not retail. To me, it's big money. I also don't think it's energy. I'm excited about energy, but remember, energy is still growing. Nice for Tesla, but compared to other companies and how many gigawatts of energy they're deploying, even if you look at some of the big oil and gas companies, whatever Tesla's doing it pales in comparison, right? Because Tesla's a smaller company when it comes to energy. Now it's growing a lot faster, but I don't know if that's the thesis for why it deserves to be up $300 billion in the past 2 weeks. I think there's something else going on. I just don't know what it is. And that's why I was speculating, maybe it's the Travis Uber guy, but obviously that's not the case. Could it be institutional FOMO? I don't know if it's institutional FOMO, dude. I think when you have a move like this, it's institutional FOMO backed up by something that the institutions know that no one else knows. And so if it is FOMO, I feel like it's more than just FOMO. It's something that maybe the rest of the street doesn't know yet. The 8/8 announcement, yes, the 8/8 announcement is exciting, and that's going to be important, but we've known about 8/8 for a while now. And maybe it's a run up till 8/8 and then it's a sell the news, who knows? But I feel like this big of a move is greater than just the 8/8 announcement. Speaking of Dan Ives, he did say for Apple, since WWDC in June, we believe optimism is growing throughout the Asia supply chain that this iPhone 16 AI-driven upgrade could represent a golden upgrade cycle for Cupertino. Looking ahead for pent-up demand, AI-driven super cycle ahead we see for Apple. I believe Dan has a $275 price target on Apple currently. And then on Tesla, they've continued to say Dan Ives believes a $400 price target. Even Gary Black has raised his price target to $270 on Tesla. And so Gary Black is also very excited about Tesla. Now, the interesting thing about Gary Black, and I love Gary Black, but again, this is the part that's very confusing to me, is like in April, I mean, he is taking victory lap after victory lap, literally gloating. When I mean literally gloating, I mean literally gloating when Tesla fell to 140, that he was right to trim Tesla at like 170 or whatever, 160, whatever it was. And to make the position, basically 2% of the fund, which is nothing compared to his other positions. And now the tone is switched. The narrative is switched. And after the stock rallies 30%, you put on a $270 price target, which is not that far away from 250. But when the stock was at 160, the idea was that the stock's never, seeing 200 again. So there is an argument for someone who said in the chat that institutional FOMO is coming because of people like Gary Black that are starting to advise their clients, hey, yeah, no, we got Tesla kind of wrong a couple months ago, and now the narrative has changed. And so maybe that is another reason why Tesla is continuing to gain some momentum. He did sell Tesla in the 52-week lows. That is correct. He did sell. And so a lot of these analysts now have to chase, because you can't be bullish on Tesla for your clients, sell it at 52-week lows, and then not have enough exposure. Your clients are going to start wondering, why are they even paying you any money, right? And so you got to start to get bullish at that point. And that's why you got to give a shout out to Dan Ives. At the lowest of levels, Dan Ives was not saying sell. He was saying, hey, there's some problems going on, but we still believe in Tesla. And as a result of that, he's been kind of vindicated right here at $248. We'll see if we can get back to $250 later today. Palantir in the pre-market, $28, still holding 28. We got about 10 minutes. We'll see how Palantir plays out. Apple is up a little bit. S&P 555 in the pre-markets, and then Bitcoin right here at 57,000 to 270. Robinhood, little discussion on Robinhood, 2286. So I did a very long post on Twitter over the weekend. I said on Friday I was going to make this post, and I took some time on Sunday and I wrote everything up. I'm going to put it in the chat. I'm not going to read through the entire thing. So if you want to read it, you can go ahead. But after crunching all the numbers, I came to a bull case of 648 million, a base case of 617, a bear case of 585. And consensus is assuming around 614 million with 14 cents of EPS. I think EPS, it could be plus or minus 5 cents. But I think that base case of 617 million for Robinhood going into Q2, I think that's probably accurate. Just based on what I think. I could be wrong on a couple of different assumptions. These are all within 5% of each other. That bull case could get closer to 660 if Robinhood really accelerates on a couple parts of the business that I was a bit conservative on, or, it falls to more 600 if some of those parts of the business don't plan out this quarter. So this is what I'm looking at. I think Robinhood is in the same position Palantir was at 24, where it was kind of just like, it's kind of waiting to really break out. It's been stuck in this 2190, 2280 range for a long time. As you can see, we hit a top at 24.28 back on June 12th, went all the way down to $20.80. And then every time we hit 20 or 21, we just bounced right back to 22. Right now, 22.86 in the pre-market. Bitcoin has been the main reason the stock has been held down. If Bitcoin was back at 70,000, I think we would be closer to 25 bucks. But Bitcoin is consolidated. That's fine. Robinhood has not dramatically decreased with Bitcoin consolidating, which is good because the business is diverging just from being associated to Bitcoin. So if we get a good earnings, then I think Robinhood breaks out to $25 on earnings as well. If we get a bad earnings, I think we fall to like 21, maybe low 20s. But I think a strong earnings probably gets us back into that $25 range. And so we'll see how that plays out. Okay, so that's what we got on Robinhood. What else do we have right here? Google right now, 189 in the pre-market. MicroStrategy down a little bit, or actually up a little bit, 2.49%, and then Uber up 0.62%. Let's hear from Ed Yardeni. He has been bullish pretty much the entire year on the broader market, and he believes that we are going to see a melt up going into the back half of the year. So let's get his thoughts, and then we'll have the market open in about 8 minutes.
Research. Ed, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Just overall, looking at 30,000 feet, seems like the labor market might be starting to ease a little bit, which would be probably friendly for the Fed's proposed action. Inflation also under control. How are you feeling? Sanguine about all these things?
I am actually. I kind of view what's going on in the labor market as normalization. I think everybody's looking at the data and saying it's getting weaker. It's only getting weaker relative to some of the pandemic-related data points that we had a year or two ago. The fact of the matter is most of the indicators suggest that we're back to a fairly normal labor market where jobs increased by 150 to 200,000 per month. Wages continue to go up, beat consumer price inflation, and the consumer has the purchasing power to continue to spend, which is what drives the economy.
Any eyebrows raised for you when you see the NASDAQ just almost, it looks like a stilt almost, and not necessarily seeing that across the board? Any trouble signs there?
Well, we've both been doing this for a while, and I think we both lived through the 1990s experience. So there's a bit of deja vu all over again when we look at the market and compare it to what happened in the late 1990s. I think the way I would describe things is we're in a slow motion melt up. The market just for the past few weeks has just continued to march higher to new record highs, and it's done it on disappointing economic indicators, because I think investors have concluded that let's not worry too much about the economy slowing or even a recession, because if that were to even become a significant risk, the Fed will move pretty quickly to lower interest rates. I don't think the Fed needs to lower interest rates, but the Fed looks like they're ready to lower them if necessary.
In terms, I think we're going to get earnings starting at the end of this week, and then we'll be, immersed for the next couple of weeks. What do you have an S&P earnings estimate for the next 12 months or so? And what type of multiple would you need to get where we are in the S&P?
Yeah, I think we're going to do $250 a share this year. That's up from $225 a share last year.
Tom Lee believes we're going to do $285 a share. So from 250 to 285 is kind of where the street is thinking EPS for the S&P is going to be.
I think next year we're going to do $270 a share, then $300 a share. By the end of the decade, I think we could be looking at $400 a share. Look, I think Becky just did a really excellent interview with the head there of Corning, and that just demonstrated that the AI story is legitimate. There's a lot of companies that are benefiting from AI. Not all of it's going to turn out to be as magic as being touted, but a lot of it will in fact be so. And I'm looking in during the second quarter for a lot of companies to give us some specific examples of how AI is starting to make a difference in their productivity and cost cutting.
So that's going to be the most important thing. I mean, the most important thing I believe is going to be in Q2, which we're in Q2, guys. Earnings is starting this week. And then next week, I think we start to get a lot more companies. The week after that, we really get all the tech companies in the third week of July. We've got to start seeing some real use cases of AI. And I think that's where Palantir, if they can if Palantir can just during the earnings call, I think the number one thing Carp needs to say outside of just, being Carp is, here's this use case, here's this use case, here's this use case. Literally he needs to go on a rant and just let everyone know our clients are using AI for this, and this, even though all of this is on their website and all this stuff. If he can just say that more clearly, and it's not just Carp, if the PayPal CEO can make an argument for why AI is accelerating their business, but in a tangible way, not just hey, here's how we think AI is going to help, but really put it out there. And obviously I think Palantir has one of the best arguments in the market for why that's the case. That's where I think these multiples are going to expand after already expanding in the broader first 6 months of the year. And so I agree with Yardeni that the earnings per share number probably closer to $250 by the end of the year. You put a multiple on that, you get closer to 5,800 on the S&P. But Apple's going to have to really explain that use case. Tesla with FSD, their narrative is going to have to be clear. NVIDIA, obviously, they already have a good narrative, but they have to make that argument clear. And then all these other companies that are saying, hey, we have an AI tailwind. I mean, even Robinhood now $22.92 in the pre-market. They just bought an AI company called Pluto. And I think they're going to be able to make the point that says, hey, we are really integrating financial LLMs into our platform, and that's going to accelerate growth. All of these companies need to continue to make that argument so that the market still feels AI is real. And if that happens, we will see some more momentum. Why is TSM at an all-time high in the pre-market? They got upgraded by Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan. And the idea is their chip demand is not going anywhere. In fact, it's accelerating. That's why they're at 190 right now in the pre-markets. Now, remember, July tends to be, in an election year, the best month of the year. So it's not unconventional that we're seeing the market rip to all-time highs and stocks are doing well in July. The question's just going to be, do we have the tailwind of a dovish Fed getting ready to cut rates in September, if not July? Probably not July, but September. And do we have Q2 with companies beating earnings? In Q1, companies beat earnings by an average of 8% in the S&P 500. Now, obviously, the Mag 7 led the way. And even though some of them didn't beat earnings like Tesla and Apple, they vigorously explained the narrative that they were going for. And the street bought into the AI iPhone thing. FSD, obviously Apple bought back $100 billion of stock. So they were able to really prove that they were valuable. Now in Q2, and we got to have another quarter in Q3 to really play out this year, but Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, they just need to show that AI is real. It's not going anywhere and it's having a real effect on the business. And I think they will. I think Google's going to crush. I think Microsoft Azure is going to crush. I think Amazon AWS is going to crush. I think Meta's advertising is going to crush. These companies, they've already issued, all of them, most of them have issued dividends. I don't even know if Amazon has a dividend, but all these companies started with a dividend, or they started issuing dividends. They've done massive buybacks. So if the stock does collapse, they have the ability to buy back stock. I would be surprised. Yeah, Amazon doesn't have a dividend. I would be surprised if Meta didn't buy back their stock at 400. I mean, Meta had, $50 billion issued in buybacks. They could have said, hey guys, we bought 20 million shares or something. when the stock got to $400. So the buybacks can continue to save momentum if it goes lower. There's just so many ways that the big seven can manufacture their earnings. And if they actually have growth on top of what they're able to do with earnings, then I think we're going to see some momentum going into the second half of the year. All right, here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. The market's opening in 10 seconds. Means the world. All eyes on Palantir to start the market open, and let's see how it plays out. 9:30 a.m. Thank you all for being here. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Palantir opens 2763, up 1.35% on the day. So we got a nasty red candle right there as people are dumping the stock. They're definitely taking some profits. So there you go, 2750. Now, we saw this happen last time. We did break a 52-week high, so we got a new 52-week high on Palantir. We saw this happening on Friday where we dumped from 26 down to like low 25s and then just bounced all the way up to 27. So I think we'll give it a few minutes and see if that trend continues, if people buy the dip, or if this continues to dump right here. Palantir still green by about 1%, but we got to see how the market continues to either buy the stock or it continues to go a little red. We'll get back to Palantir in a second. Apple 226 up 0.28%. IWM 202. The Russell starting to see some momentum up about 1%. S&P 500 555.64. New high on the S&P. Absolutely incredible. Bitcoin 57,300. TSM 190. Amazon 199.59. That's down a little bit. Tesla 247. That's down 1.48%. Nvidia 127.38, still up 1.22%, but down a little bit from the pre-market at 127.76. Robinhood goes green, 22.71, up 0.24% on the day. SoFi is green, 650, up 0.46%. Netflix 685. Netflix almost hit 699 last week. Right now it's 685, so almost touched 700. Right now it's 685. MicroStrategy's up 1.5%. QQQ 496. QQQ, the NASDAQ closing in on $500 potentially. Let's see how that plays out. Rocket Lab. There you go. Rocket Lab at $5. Not bad. Up 3% on Rocket Lab. Visa is up. TFC is up. BlackBerry is up. Eli Lilly, they acquired a company for about $2 billion this morning. They are up. Ginkgo Bioworks is up a little bit, 0.75%. Hims is up 0.875%. Shopify 67.29. DJT 29.20. SMCI 880. That's up 3.95% on the day. Dell is probably up a little bit. Dell is up 0.8%. Palantir 27.67, so seeing a little bit of a green candle there. 27.72, trying to make its way back up to that $28 level. Heavy volume, yes, 6.5 million shares within the first 2 minutes. That is pretty heavy. Usually you get about 6 million in about an hour on Palantir. So you got an hour's worth of volume happening in the first 2 minutes. People are obviously wanting to get exposure, but there's also definitely people that are taking some profits here at this 27.70 level. Where's CrowdStrike? Let's take a look at that. CrowdStrike, wow, up another 1.5%. CrowdStrike almost touching $400. Look at that. That's incredible. If you're just joining, Palantir did get a pseudo upgrade from Citibank this morning. Instead of a sell rating, they got upgraded to neutral, but they retained a $25 price target and are a little bit confused about government growth and AIP monetization. The market seems to not care too much as they continue to get exposure. Now, here's the thing about Palantir as well. Wow, the S&P is about to go to 556. Holy crap. Look at that. It touched 556. Wow, 555.90. The thing about Palantir right now is I do think FOMO from retail is going to start to take place, maybe even institutional FOMO. And $27 to you and me seems like a lot of money because we've been in Palantir since like $7-8, and we're like, oh my God, 7 to 27. For the average person, $27 is not a lot of money, right? If they're not caring about market cap or price of sales or PE, if they're just thinking, oh, can I buy 1,000 shares, $27,000? Okay, here. It's easier than buying $100,000 of Nvidia if they just want exposure to AI. And this is what happens in the market. I mean, a lot of times people buy stocks and there's a narrative, there's a trend, and $27 is not as expensive as $120, and they want AI exposure. So boom, they buy a couple thousand shares, and for them it's not that much money, even if theoretically they're paying 52-week highs and paying expensive prices if you look at price of sales or PEs. That's where you and I get to sit and relax because we bought it lower and just let it kind of play out, right? I'm sure a lot of Tesla shareholders who bought it at 140 are just kind of sitting and relaxing as the market does what the market needs to do. So the question is going to be, are people going to dump as the thing gets higher to $28 on Palantir and take advantage of the new money coming in? Or are we going to let this kind of play out and see more money decide to come into the stock. And so we'll see. So there you go. There you go. IWM 203, Apple 226. So TNA probably is breaking out. It's nice to see IWM is up. TNA, yeah, is up 3.37%. IWM needs to broaden, or at least this rally needs to broaden to IWM to small caps. And so it's very important to kind of see them go up. If they don't go up, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because I think that means more money flows into other undervalued names that are quality over IWM, which really doesn't have a lot of quality, but it is undervalued in comparison to the S&P. But it would be really nice to see the IWM try to get to 230, 240, because then we have a real rally throughout the entire market happening, and it's not just in the Mag 7. Tesla's down 2%. I think there's no reason why Tesla's down other than they're getting a breather. Elon Musk did tweet over the weekend that there was going to be no new update of the Model Y this year. So there's not a new version of it. I think we all knew that, but he just confirmed. Outside of that, I think it's just taking a little bit of a breather. I don't think there's any real news on Tesla. Rivian right now is up a little bit, 1488. Lucid, I think, was up 9% today. Yeah, Lucid's up 3%. Apple just went red. So Apple just went red. So people are dumping at that level. Robinhood 2276. Norwegian Cruise Line up 2.37%. Carnival Cruise Line is up about 2.79%. MicroStrategy just went not red, but it lost a little bit of its pre-market gains. And then Uber right here at 71.29. Enphase up 1% on the day. NVDL, XX NVIDIA fund, that's up about 4%. Why is NVIDIA up? They got upgraded by UBS to 150. NVIDIA right here. NVIDIA 128. NVIDIA maybe trying to make a run back at 130, up 1.85%. Where's Snowflake? Snowflake is down a little bit. Let's look at the SaaS sector. So SaaS today is, wow, Palantir is the only green. Look at that. Look at the left-hand side of my screen. Palantir is the only green. Adobe's down, ServiceNow's down, Mongo's down, Atlassian's down, CRM's down, Oracle's down, Confluence down, Snowflake down, Datadog down, Intuit, Twilio, GitLab, CrowdStrike, Zscaler. This is like the second time in the past 2 months that Palantir has been green and the rest of SaaS has been red. So let's see if Palantir can maintain the green. All of SaaS being red is not good for Palantir, but maybe that's also why Palantir is green, because they're not just conventional SaaS, or at least the market doesn't think of them as conventional SaaS. Not bad. SMCI is ripping, probably. When NVIDIA's up, SMCI goes up. SMCI, there you go, up 5%. Dell should be up about 2%. Yeah, Dell's up 2.07%. And then NVIDIA's up almost 2%. Palantir still 2760. Tesla still down 247. And then Bitcoin falling a little bit at 57,000, down from 57,004. Where's the S&P? Where's the S&P? SPY, yeah, it just went down from 556 to 555, but it's still up 0.2% of the day. All right, so people took their profits as soon as the market opened. People took their profits. And now let's just see how it kind of plays out for the rest of the day. Palantir is still here at 2768. Okay, Bank of America did issue a couple notes on what we should think from CPI and on the broader labor market. So we got unemployment data last week, and it was at 4.1%. Bank of America said that in this report, we summarize 8 medium-term technical setups and key levels to track into Q3. They believe that although unemployment went to 4.1%, that should eventually lead to a decreasing, essentially the summary of this, of the 10-year, and that should be good for overall equity. So Bank of America thinks that unemployment going down or unemployment going up is actually a good thing. Now, Goldman Sachs on CPI that we're going to get in 4 days, they believe that CPI will increase 0.11% on the headline, 0.21% on the core, which would bring year over year to 3.17 and core to 3.43. That means that I think last month we came in at 3.2. They're basically expecting 3.2 again. So they're expecting it to be flat. They believe energy is going to come down a little bit. Shelter is going to come down a little bit, but everything else is going to go up. Car insurance is probably going to be up 0.5%. And then used cars are going to be down 1.6%. So still, new cars will be up 0.2%. We're still going to get CPI at flat. If CPI comes in at 3.1 or potentially 3.0 instead of 3.2, which is what we got last week, maybe that is enough to get the market to get excited. But if we come in flat, I don't think the market's going to be upset. I think it's just a question of if that means equities can benefit, given equities have done so well in July already. NVIDIA right here trying to get to 129 now, 128.08 on the day. Enovix up 120% in the past 3 months. Yeah, Enovix has been absolutely incredible given the deals they've gotten out. Wow, 1669 up 4.28% on the day for Enovix. Boeing, yes, Boeing did plead guilty. So Boeing is going to have to pay. They're up 2%. The reason they're up, even though they're going to have to pay like a $300 million fine, is because I think they're finally getting over all the stuff they've dealt with. And so this lawsuit was an overhang on the stock for the past 3 months. Now it's not an overhang. Now they're just agreeing to plead guilty to the 737 MAX issues, pay a fine, and move on from there. So I think the market's kind of overlooking some of their problems. Boeing right here up 2.24%. I think it's still down 15% for the year, but market's exciting now for Boeing. Yeah, sorry, it's down 30%. It was at 250. Now it's at 188. At one point it got to 159 this year. ARM is up another 1.64% at 184. So new 52-week high on ARM, market cap of 200 billion or 193 billion. SolarEdge, yes, SolarEdge is getting some momentum. Ironically, Enphase is not getting any momentum. SolarEdge is up 6%. I guess SolarEdge just got too oversold. Enphase is not really seeing the same momentum, even though it tends to move with SolarEdge. Enphase right here only up 1.55%. Intel as well is moving higher. I don't know why Intel's up 5%. I'm assuming they got an upgrade. That's the only reason. Let me check. It would have to be some type of upgrade. But I don't think any fundamental news came out about Intel. Yeah, there's no news on Intel, no upgrade. It's just starting to break out a little bit. So that's good. If you have Intel, not bad at all. I was stuck at $30 for basically like almost 8 months, or not 8 months, but like 4 months after it came down from 50 last quarter. Enovix up 3%. Where is Palantir? Palantir's still holding 27, man. Still holding these mid 27s, not giving it up yet, even though all of SaaS is red. Tesla's down 2%, Apple's down almost 1%, IWM still up, Bitcoin 57.2, Robna just went red, 22.57. That's probably down because Bitcoin fell a little bit. Palantir still holding 27 right now. AMD, wow, 176. AMD was 154 last week, 153.30 on June 20th, so 2 weeks ago, now at 176. Piper Sandler did say AMD is their top pick to outperform in the second half of the year. And so far, that is seeming to be true. Google at 188, and then Palantir right here, still 27.60 on the day. Cool. Not bad stuff, guys. I mean, can't ask for that much more. We were touching 28 when the market opened, and people took their profits at 28. That's fine. Let me look at the book volume and let's see if there's any resistance back at 28. I would imagine there is a little bit of resistance. NVIDIA right here at 128. Let's see. So Palantir at $28, there is 43,000 shares waiting, which is not crazy. So if we do get some momentum, we can get back to 28. That's not insane to say at all. Just going to need a little bit more volume to come in and people to start buying a bit more. But let's see. CrowdStrike is getting hit a little bit. Yeah, CrowdStrike going red with the rest of SaaS down 1%. Qualcomm, how's that one doing? Qualcomm, that's up 1.93%. Wow, that one fell from 231. I didn't even notice that. That fell from 231 to 193 last month, now making its way back to 209. Let's look at Micron. Micron at 132. So Micron's flat after earnings, bottomed at 127, now at 132. At one point it was at 150. Guidance was just not that good for Micron to keep it above the 140 range. But Micron is green for the day. My expectations on earnings or on CPI is that we probably come in at 3.1 or 3.2. I think 3.0 is pretty aggressive for CPI, given that oil was a bit higher. And I don't know if the Fed's looking at the right data for shelter to come in lower. But regardless of what inflation is, S&P back at 555, I do think it's going to set up for a September cut. And so there's going to be enough key metrics in that report probably for the Fed to think it's okay to cut. So even if it's 3.1 or 3.2, I think we get the cut. Remember, last time we surprised, everyone thought it would be 3.4 and we got 3.2. So it was a nice lowering of CPI. As unemployment goes higher and CPI comes lower, the Fed, they're probably going to have to cut. And that cut hopefully happens in September, which ends up being good for equities. So we're going to see. We're going to see how it plays out. And that'll be on Thursday. Jay Powell will be testifying in front of the Fed on tomorrow and Wednesday. Or tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Or no, yeah, tomorrow and Wednesday, and then Thursday CPI. NVIDIA 129. NVIDIA up almost 3%. NVIDIA is trying to see if it can get back up to 130. Broadcom today. Their split is at the end of the month, right? I think July 31st. Broadcom is 17.18. So they're down from 17.65, a little bit of a dip, but they are up from earnings when they were at almost 13.90. Yeah, not bad. I mean, look, as long as earnings continues to crush for a lot of these companies, we're going to see multiple expansion. I don't think we're going to see money sit on the side. Also, we saw money market funds at a record 6.15 trillion last week. I think some of that money, once they realize the Fed is cutting, if we get a good CPI, is going to start flowing into equities, and either they go into IWM or they go into something like Tesla, right? That now has rallied, but didn't rally for the majority of the year. And that should continue to prop up different elements of the market. OpenAI, some news on OpenAI. OpenAI has restricted further access in China, so local AI firms are stepping up incentives to lure developers to switch their AI offerings. Baidu is offering 50 million free tokens alongside free AI model fine-tuning, while SenseTime offered 50 million tokens. Zypo offered 150 million tokens, and Alibaba is offering 10 million tokens. Now, why does this matter? This is a question I still haven't gotten an answer to at all, which is that if Apple's AI upgrade cycle or Apple's iPhone upgrade cycle is built on AI, and the most popular model that they have is banned in China, aka GPT. Also, I don't think Gemini is in China or Llama. I think all of them are banned in China. Then what are Apple users in China when they want to talk to Siri? Who are they going to be talking to? Are they talking to Baidu? Are they talking to Alibaba? And what does that mean in the context of privacy, given that we know the Chinese government has a stranglehold on all the data that comes into these models? So I don't know if it's the biggest deal in the world. I don't think it's a bear case for Apple, but I am curious if people are upgrading to AI iPhones in China, they're going to want AI features. Siri is the biggest AI feature. And if OpenAI is not available, then, well, I'm curious, what's going to end up taking that place. So I guess we'll see more information on how that plays out once the iPhone rolls out. 555.94 on the S&P, trying to get to 556, which would be a new high. Palantir just went red. All right, Palantir just went red, fully reversed. Yep. 2706 got rejected at $28. It was still fun when we got to 28.35. Got rejected there. We'll see how it plays out throughout the rest of the day. But 2706 right now as the market opens. Robin at 22.40, PayPal 59. Meta goes down about 1%, 532 from 543. So market's taking some profits here. Rally's not continuing that aggressively, but the broader S&P, probably being led by NVIDIA, is trying to push up to that 556 level on the day. Real bulls want dips. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you're a real bull on Palantir, real bull or not, I think if you want to increase your Palantir allocation, I don't think you care that you're seeing a dip. And also, I mean, yeah, look, the price was getting up there. It went to $28, kind of off no catalyst. But I do think the street wants exposure. I mean, it's kind of proving it right here. Even if we fall back to 25, which would suck. I agree. It would suck. It's one of those things where you're still up 50% year to date. And now Palantir has been exposed to so many new people after rallying to $28. And it kind of looks like a dip. Remember, people thought the dip was at 22, 21. Now, if the dip is from 28 to 25, people might end up buying that dip. And that makes 25 a solid base, which is a healthy consolidation and a healthy run up for Palantir versus just mooning to $35, right? So I think that's actually not the worst thing in the world. Cool. So that's what we got in the context of Palantir. Let's get an update on that Boeing deal, actually, and then we'll keep going from there. And we'll see what else is going on. So here's an update on the Boeing pleading guilty deal.
Boeing reaching a deal to plead guilty in a case related to the crashes of 737 MAX planes 5 years ago. Phil LeBeau joins us right now. He's got more of the details on that. Phil, good morning.
Becky, this was a filing late last night, and it is a guilty plea by Boeing. So let me go over what the terms are of this plea agreement between Boeing and the Department of Justice. And again, they jointly filed this with the court last night. The charge is conspiring to defraud the government. By the way, that is a felony charge. We'll talk about the significance in just a little bit of it being a felony. The fine that Boeing will agree to pay is $243.6 million. In addition, it will invest at least $455 million.
So the $240 million, to me, that feels like a traffic stop. I mean, that's not a lot of money for a $200 billion company. I was actually surprised that fine is not more, given the amount of crashes that have happened. But I think that's also why the street's like, well, 240 million is just not a lot of money.
$1 billion in making sure that its some safety and compliance programs meet the standards that they're supposed to meet over the next 3 years. And an independent corporate monitor will be hired and approved by the judge, who will make sure that Boeing is doing what it should be doing when it comes to safety and compliance. The focus for that monitor will be quality control. This has been at the heart of the problems for Boeing, and it's what triggered the DOJ to say, wait a second, you violated the deferred prosecution agreement revolving around 2 737 MAX crashes in 2018 and 2019. Boeing has declined to comment on the details of the plea agreement, simply saying that it had reached an agreement. This does not sit well with the relatives of the 737 MAX family. We knew that they would not be happy with this agreement. Javier DeLuis.
So again, it's more so a quality control argument for Boeing, which makes sense. At the end of the day, they have horrible quality control. Palantir right here, 2685, but the fine is a joke. I mean, $240 billion is nothing. And that's why I think the street really doesn't care. And that's why they're buying the stock. So Palantir, nice little reversal right here. Big red candle down 1.21%. Although money flowing out of some of these stocks going into NVIDIA. Look at that green candle, folks, 3.45%. You couldn't hold NVIDIA down for too long. That upgrade from UBS, I guess, got the street really excited. And again, for those that are wondering why it's up so much, that upgrade in particular said, we have done our checks and we believe demand for Blackwell, which remember Jensen in the last call, he said, you're going to see Blackwell revenue this year. UBS is basically saying Jensen was right. We're going to see demand for Blackwell this year, which means they're probably going to beat earnings estimates again. And the stock theoretically will become cheaper as the PE starts to fall on their earnings beat. So that's why I think they're getting this momentum right now, because UBS basically said, we don't see the problem that New Street Research saw last week, and we think demand is going to be strong. Palantir back above 27, so a little reversal right here from 26.89 back up to 27 on a green candle, but it still is down from those high 27s earlier in the day. Let's go back to CNBC, see what they're saying about stocks, and then we'll keep going from there.
There's really extraordinary. Are you concerned at all by that? No, not at all. I haven't forgotten that. Will you listen? One day.
Bitter table of one.
One day.
Jeez, okay.
Actually, this was the wrong. Hold on. I was going to play it something different. Let me pull up this thing right here. This is what I was going to pull up. I was on the wrong tab, and we'll go from there. So this is, I want to put some analysis in the context of, here is what I was looking at. Tesla, and then we're going to talk about the Fed. So here is Bernstein that has been bearish on Tesla. They have a $120 price target for the past 6 months. Here's his argument for this $250 price target makes no sense. And then we'll talk Fed and rate cuts.
Tech with our next guest, but let's start with Tesla. Shares shot up by 27% last week and wiped out losses for all of 2024. Our next guest, though, said in a recent note that he expects Tesla to face many of the same challenges next year that it's facing right now, and just with more competition. Joining us right now is Tony Sacconaghi. He is Bernstein's senior research analyst. He actually rates Tesla underperform with a $120 per share price target. Tony, I'm looking at it. Tesla's almost at 150 or 250. That is so far above your price target. What do you do at this point?
Good morning, Becky. Look, Tesla's had a great run, as you mentioned, up, I think, 25% in the last week, almost 40% in the last couple of weeks. It's clearly riding momentum of better than feared results, but this is a company whose deliveries were down 5% this quarter. They were down 9% last quarter. It's trading at 125 times earnings. There's anticipation that things may get a little better, but they're still not good. And there's anticipation about a robo-taxi event in early August. And so we could continue to see some momentum in the stock, but this is meme-like, quite frankly. The valuation is disconnected from the fundamentals. The company was supposed to earn $7 in earnings this year. Consensus estimates are now $2, and the stock price is really not that different. And it's really about enthusiasm that things may get better and that Tesla may say something really exciting at its robo-taxi announcement. But at the end of the day, stocks get measured on cash flows and future cash flows. And we just see a disconnect between what that earnings and cash flow power is and the company's current share price.
Who agrees with that? Before we continue, who agrees? What he just said for that 1 minute. Who thinks he's right? Who thinks he's wrong with what he said?
Tony, I hear your point, but that is the same argument that the shorts have been making against Tesla for a very, very long time, to their great dismay. I just wonder, do you keep your $120 price target, or is there a point where you have to say, okay, forget it, we're back to earlier valuations of Tesla, and I'm not going to stick to it, or do you?
Well, look, I mean, of course, any investor has to be open-minded about what a company may or may not do. And so if we did see a path where Tesla could be a leader in autonomous vehicles, or Tesla could build a very sizable business of building humanoid robots, of course, we would have to adjust our outlook and our future estimates, and accordingly our price target. But at this point, we don't see that. We believe that autonomy is a ways out, and we don't believe that Tesla will uniquely solve that problem. Waymo has been working at this. They've been doing trials since 2012 on self-driving. Tesla has not done any public trials. Not to say that Tesla won't do well in full self-driving. It's just not something that it necessarily will be able to exclusively do. And you have to almost believe that to get to the types of valuations that Tesla stock is currently trading at.
So here's my thing. Even if you agree with everything he's saying, why is the stock up 84% from the lows? It's not retail. Like, I just refuse to believe that this is a meme stock rally. I don't think retail can move it that high. This has to be institutional for at least 30 to 40% of the 80% rally from the lows, which means, why are institutions getting in, right? What are they seeing that this guy is not seeing? And if they're seeing something that justifies this valuation, then I think he's dead wrong. And maybe they are. If this was a 10 or 20% gain, okay, fine, that's retail. Not an 84%. That's almost 100% gain in 3 weeks. I think that's something else.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about Apple. We just heard.
Okay, cool. So that's what he had to say about Tesla. I don't know, dude. I don't buy it, dude. I don't buy this is a meme stock run. Palantir back in the green, 27.35. I do not buy that Tesla is a meme stock run. If it went from 167 to 200, okay, maybe that's a little just retail getting excited that Elon got paid, yada yada. I think going to 250, $800 billion market cap, no way, dude. Someone knows something. It's not robots to me, because I don't think the street cares about robots yet. Although maybe that's the big surprise that the street knows about that we don't really know about yet. I think it's something to do with FSD. And I really wanted it to be the Travis Kalanick rumor, but that's not it. So it has to be something else. I don't know what the hell it is. I just don't think it's them saying, I don't think the street woke up and they said, hey, let's buy Tesla. Like, if they didn't do that for 6 months, they're going to randomly do that when Elon gets paid. By the way, Elon getting paid is dilutive to shareholder. It's not like that's like a great catalyst for the stock. It's good because he's not leaving anywhere. But to go up 84% from that range, like, that takes a lot of money. Retail doesn't have $300 billion to add to the stock. Like, that has to be institutional money coming in. So I think there has to be something more. I could be wrong, but I think there has to be something more. Palantir 27.32, Intel 33. Intel, nice little breakout of 5%. Enphase is up 2.5%. Boeing's up 2.3%. Snowflake's down 1%. Let's look at SAS again. I think all of SAS is still red outside of Palantir. Yeah, look at that. All of SAS still red outside of Palantir. It's really phenomenal, guys. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of stocks move within their sector. And so there's like, the reason Lucid's up is probably because Rivian's, like, a lot of times these stocks just move with each other. It's really interesting to see Palantir diverge from all the SaaS names and be green independent. I mean, these stocks are down 3 to 4% all on the day. Intuit, Twilio, Cloudflare, Adobe, Mongo. Palantir is the only one kind of surviving, being green. Chris says expectations are going to be super high for the Tesla event. I agree, which is why, and historically we've seen Tesla sell off on these 8-8 type of events. But it kind of makes me, I don't think we've seen a run up like this to a Tesla event ever. Like, a lot of people have been owning the stock for a long time. Have you ever seen an 80% run up before, like, a Cybertruck event or an investor day or an AI day? I mean, 80% is a lot, bro, from the lows. So I kind of feel like this run is a little different. Maybe I'm wrong there. And maybe 8.8 doesn't disappoint. This event isn't a month. This isn't an event run up. Yeah, that's a point. We're also a month back out. So it's not like it's like 2 weeks before the event. It's got to be something else, dude. But I don't know. And I disagree with that. Elon's pumping the stock. I don't think Elon. What has Elon said over the past couple of weeks? Outside of the whole, Tesla's gonna be $30 trillion, but that was like a month ago, and that was on the investor day or the shareholder meeting, and like, of course, he's gonna pump it. But since then, Elon has not come out with any salacious statements on Tesla. In fact, he shut down rumors that actually would pump the stock even more. So I think he's been pretty chill the past couple of weeks. This is just the market deciding they want to buy up Tesla and to keep getting exposure. Coinbase is now. Let's look at the crypto stocks real quick. Coinbase, Bitcoin just still struggling. A couple of Bitcoin pieces of news I want to give you guys in a second. Bitcoin is up 3%. Coinbase is down 1.1%. Marathon is up. So a Japanese company did buy some more Bitcoin over the weekend. The name of the company is Metaplanet. They bought 42 more Bitcoin. They spent about 400 million yen. That's not like the biggest deal in the world, but still, they bought some Bitcoin. And in general, the ETFs did good on Friday. So, I mean, Bitcoin is just kind of, being what it's doing. But the other thing about Bitcoin, so Germany also is buying. That's another thing that happened so Germany bought back $111 million after selling about $325 million of Bitcoin. This was actually really interesting to see. They bought 1,915 Bitcoin worth about 112 million. And it seems like the reason for that was because they want to still keep Bitcoin in their reserve. So maybe they were forced to sell some of their Bitcoin to finance some operations. I don't know why they had to sell the Bitcoin, but maybe, for some reason they had to sell. They ended up buying back some. This was good news. The Mt. Gox Bitcoin liquidation is still happening. So that's still an overhang on Bitcoin, but I feel like the market has priced that in. The Germany surprise buyback on Bitcoin was actually nice to see. And that wasn't bad. And I found this chart really interesting. So this is the distribution of Bitcoin. 6% of Bitcoin is yet to be mined. 2% is owned by the government. 4% is owned by the ETFs. 4% by corporations. That's basically Michael Saylor. 3% by miners. 17% of Bitcoin is lost. And then 57% is owned by individual holders of Bitcoin. And 5% Satoshi has. So kind of interesting to see this overall distribution. We get a rate cut. We get more liquidity. I think we get more momentum. But as of now, the ETFs have been doing okay, but they've just not been doing as well as they were doing back in February. And so we need to see some more momentum there. Adam says, Amit, for Germany, I believe they did buy it. It was the amount of Bitcoin that did not fill. The Bitcoin went back to their wallet. That's what I was reading. Interesting. Okay, so I guess we'll find out soon in terms of how Germany played that out. But I mean, the point is Bitcoin bounced 2 times at this point at 53,000. And so it's been a nice bounce from 53. Mr. 100, we saw, bought 700 Bitcoin last week at around 55,000. We're still waiting on Dell to buy some Bitcoin. Michael Dell keeps tweeting about it like he's going to buy it, but he hasn't officially bought it. If Dell put $1 billion of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, I think it would get very exciting. And so maybe the next catalyst is a corporation deciding to put it on the balance sheet. But so far, that has not officially happened. GameStop and Chewy. So GameStop is up a little bit, 0.37, and Chewy is up 0.25. Now, the GameStop bulls feel that Roaring Kitty is going to go live streaming today because he updated his YouTube playlist. And their argument is that historically, whenever he updates that playlist, he goes live the next day. Maybe we get a surprise Roaring Kitty live stream. I think Roaring Kitty's out of GameStop. And so I think he's done with it. I think that's the only reason he had the money to buy Chewy. So I don't think he's going to go live, but if he does, we'll cover it. But I don't think that's going to be the case. Oh, look at Tesla reversing. Look at that. Tesla 251. There you go. Look at that. Green candle on Tesla. Tesla trying to get to 252. There you go. 252. The volume's coming in. 25 million shares on Tesla going green. Going green on Tesla. Not bad. Not bad at all. 252. Kind of reversing. It was stuck at 248 for the majority of the past 30 minutes. Now back green. Look at that. Trying to get to 253. Does the pump continue, bro? Remember, Tesla went above 5% green every single day last week. And we had 4 trading days. And I think the last day did 2%, and the day before was up 10%. So if we continue, maybe we get back closer to 260 today. It's asking for a lot, obviously, but let's see. This is definitely a middle finger stock. This is definitely a middle finger stock. Look at that. 253. It's trying to hold 253 right now. S&P at 555.8. NVIDIA back below 130. Tesla 258. Where's Palantir? Palantir, I think, taking a small breather at 27. 27.36. So still green. It is down, but it's still green. And then Tesla 253. Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, so let's see what else we have right here. Yeah, Tesla really trying to break above 250. It keeps getting rejected right there, but it's still getting higher. What about Hood? Hood is struggling because of Bitcoin. I mean, if the Hood dip, 2240, it's not really a dip in my opinion, but if it gets back to 2228, that's your dip. And then last week it went to 2170, bounced up really nicely. I think Hood's gonna crush earnings, dude. I think they're gonna fucking crush. And then it depends, if Bitcoin tanks 5% on their earnings day, that'll really not be the best. But if Bitcoin stays stable, I think Robinhood is going to crush earnings. I think Robinhood wants to break out of this $22 range. They've been held down here because of Bitcoin. And because also the street's looking for new numbers. I mean, like the street really wants to see Q2 lived up to the expectations they have. And if they do, I think we're heading to 25. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on Robinhood, but it's going to take until earnings. Tesla again getting hit at 253, but 252.5 is where it's settling in on right now. Did any news come in about Tesla? I don't think so. Let me check. That was a nice reversal though. That was just like a straight U-corn. Did I say U-corn? A U-turn. I like corn, but no, it's not a U-corn. It was a U-turn. Elon tweeted that Korean people are smart people. And that's because Tesla is the #1 stock held by Koreans. Interesting. So maybe the Koreans were happy that he said they're nice people or they're smart people, and the Koreans started buying even more Tesla. I did a podcast, by the way, with someone from Korea a week ago. It's on YouTube. If you type in, I don't know. I don't even know what to type. Amit Palantir Korea something. It'll pop. I'll put it in the chat. But I do think that there's a big Korean audience for Palantir, and a massive one for Tesla as well. So maybe Tesla and Palantir end up being two of the larger stocks that are owned by the Korean population over the next decade. Tesla right here, 253. Look at that, running to 254, or trying to run to 254, 253.7 right now on Tesla. No other news I'm looking at other than the short float, 5.7 billion, or short losses of 5.7 billion on Tesla. And the shorts are losing more as it's going green now. They're not recovering any of the short float. Palantir 2760. So Palantir back into that mid 27s. Even though Palantir fell from 28, holding 27.5 is incredible, dude. Holding 27.5 is absolutely incredible. And if that becomes our new base, on Palantir, dude, we're in a new era for Palantir. We're in a new world for Palantir. Same thing with Tesla. If 250 becomes that new base, every dollar goes above 250, it makes it a little harder for it to fall back below 2. Think about Tesla going to 220. 220 would be a real dip. Last time it was at 230 on July 2nd. We're like, oh, it could fall back to 220. Now, if it falls back to 220, it's like, no. That's like a nice real dip we're seeing on Tesla. So it's harder to get it back to 220. Just like even if it fell to 240, that would be harder. Every dollar you go up, it becomes a little bit more difficult for us to see a nice sell-off, given it starts to establish itself at these levels. So let's see. Yeah, Palantir breaking through 2750, correct. Palantir breaking through 2750 right here. Wow, 2765 on Palantir. Maybe we make a run. Back to 28. There's not a lot of resistance there. But we've got to be able to see if we can make that run. Okay, let me see what's going on CNBC. And then we'll go from there. Okay, they're talking a bit more about CPI. So let's take a look at that. And then we'll keep going. All right, here we go.
And there's This rule, a lot of economists follow the Somm rule from Claudia Somm, who used to be at the Fed, who looks at things like 3-month averages on employment coming off the lows in the last 12 months, almost triggering the Somm rule, which would be indicative of recession. It's predicted every recession since 1970. So we're coming off lows. I would say job market moderating, slightly cooling, nothing extreme. But to your point, David, the odds of the September cut off that jobs report went from low 70s percentage to 78%. So the market did see through the strength in the headline number and looked at some of the weaker elements of that report. Again, nothing dramatic in terms of stress.
I mean, this week, though, CPI, PPI is going to be more. Right?
CPI, PPI is going to be key. And remember, PCE is even more key than those numbers. And the last PCE report of May, which I think Powell was referencing there, showed 2.6%. So it's not 2% where they want to be, but it's moving closer to that point. Great chart at a Bank of America Merrill Lynch on the inflation, just as a preview to look ahead to Thursday's CPI report. They say that we're going to need a sub 0.2% monthly reading to get progress on disinflation going in the second half of the year. They look at all those scenarios, basically, of the monthly reading. So we obviously don't want to see a 0.4% monthly reading because then inflation goes back up, or 0.3 even, because it goes back up. It's hard to keep track of these monthly readings, but you want to see an inline report, which is 0.2% increase on prices over the month, or less than that. And that's certainly what the Fed would like to see to get that trend on track so they can move to this cut, which they clearly are itching to do, Carl. They're phrasing it as an adjustment from the tight monetary policy that we've been living under.
It's going to be tight. As you said, B of A is looking for sub 0.2, right, in order to keep this thing in line.
Which would be good.
Tracks,
yeah, which would be good for the Fed, which would be good for investors. The question is to what extent that's already priced in.
They also point out some of the base effects get tougher in the second half, though.
Yeah, always. Look, it's crazy that we're looking at things like auto insurance as a swing factor, but that's the thing, because rent prices and owner's equivalent rent have been sticky, and we don't expect much progress on that. So as far as the components, transportation services is going to be really important to watch because airfares were pretty weak last month, and so that was helpful for the overall number. We look at that core CPI, especially the super core where you take out housing. It really gives you a snapshot of services. So that's coming this week. We're also watching the impact and the reverberations from the French election, which kind of a surprise, right? That we did not see.
It was quite a surprise.
So French elections were very interesting. Marine Le Pen won last week. And I'm not an expert on France's election process, but apparently the left party, so Marine Le Pen is like more hard right. The leftist party won a bunch of seats over the weekend, and there were protests and there was riots and all this shit. And so in France, they kind of equaled out her reign on the country because she was supposed to have majority control, and now she doesn't, if I'm not wrong. So it's interesting as well because in France right now we're having the Olympics getting ready to take place. So we are seeing geopolitically, we thought the right wing was getting a lot more momentum across Europe, and some of that is being subsided by the leftists. Also, the Labour Party won which is more socially democratic, in the UK, and they beat the Conservatives, and Rishi Sunak is not the PM anymore. So we thought there was kind of this shift to right-wingism, and it's kind of being balanced out by leftism. The United States is going to be the deciding factor. Does Trump or Biden end up winning, which is going to kind of set the tone for the rest of the world as well. And so I guess we're going to see. In terms of updates on Biden, he did do a couple of. How do we forget about this? We had the press conference. We had the interview with ABC, George Stephanopoulos, and I actually watched that entire interview live. I don't know if you guys watched it. Let me know if you guys watched it in the chat. Was not a fan of the interview. And the reason I was not a fan, there's one quote that's really important to see. I'll see if I can find the video, but the quote that I got that just wasn't good. Biden was asked, would he be willing to take a cognitive test to prove he's fit to be the president? He said, look, I go through a cognitive test every day being the president. Then George doubled down and he was like, yeah, but whatever. Would you actually be willing to take like a 30-minute test by a doctor? And he said, I already take the test every day. So he basically said no. And so to me, just as an American citizen, it was very concerning. How are you not willing to take a basic cognitive diagnostic test. I mean, some people were actually trying to defend this in the chat, or not in the chat, in the comments. Let me know in the chat if you think it's reasonable to not have to take a test. Like, I coach debate, right? I've coached debate for the past 10 years. I have about 3 clients that I work with right now in California, and those are the main 3 kids that I teach. If their parents were like, hey, Amit, before we pay you money to coach our kids, we want to like test you on your debate skills. Are you willing to take a test? And I was like, no, just trust me. I'm a good debate coach. You can pay me money and don't worry. I think they would be like, yeah, we're not giving this kid any money, because like if he's not willing to answer some basic questions, it's like, you got like, it's like, and I would be willing to take any debate test because I know debate like the back of my head, right? Competitive debates, like a whole different language. And so if they were to ask me questions, I would pass the test with flying colors. I really wouldn't care. So if you're the president of the United States and you're not willing to take a cognitive test, which is like matching patterns and shit, really basic stuff. It's just proving that you're like fit to like understand how basic things are operating. It's very weird, bro. Very weird. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And so that part was a little scary to see that he was not willing to take that test. Let me see if I can get that video, and I want to play it. But I don't know. I don't know if that means we're going to lose Biden this week. I mean, strategic Democratic operatives are saying that it's time for Kamala to run up. But if we do, then maybe it's going to be Kamala versus Trump. Tesla, IWM still maintaining its momentum, 203. Tesla, 251, so falling back down. NVIDIA, 128. Palantir, 2765. Broader market is 555. Yeah, taking a little bit of a breather, but still going down. Okay, let me see if I can find this video right here. I mean, I was watching this live. I've never watched like a live news thing in terms of an interview, but I think a lot of people tuned into this one because this was a big one with the president, and people were trying to figure out how he was. And then my overall thoughts on the rest of the interview, as I was watching it, he could not speak effectively. He just could not. He could not talk as effectively as I thought he would be able to talk. It was tough. Like he was getting words out, but you could tell he was struggling, and it was just a little weird thinking that he's ready to go and he's fully, ready to be the president. Okay, I believe the video is here. We'll let this play a little bit. Here we go.
Years cost you physically, mentally, emotionally?
Well, I just think it cost me a really bad night, bad run. But, George, I'm optimistic about this country. I don't think we're a country of losers that he points out. I don't think America's in tough shape. I think America's on the cusp of breaking through in so many incredible opportunities. This next term, I'm going to make sure we have straighten out the tax system. I'm going to make sure we're in a situation where we have health care for all people, or we're in a position where we have child care based on what he wants to do in the last several months. Keep my schedule.
I know you spoke with your doctor after the debate. What did he say?
He said, he just looked at me. He said, you're exhausted. I said, look, I have medical doctors traveling me everywhere, every president does, as you know. Medical doctors, some of the best in the world, travel me everywhere I go. I have an ongoing assessment of what I'm doing. They don't hesitate to tell me if they think there's something wrong.
I know you said you have an ongoing assessment. Have you had a full neurological and cognitive evaluation?
I get a full neurological test every day with me. And I've had a full physical. I had, I've been able to read for my physicals. Yes. The answer is
I know your doctor said he consulted with a neurologist. I guess I'm asking a slightly different question. Have you had the specific cognitive tests, and have you had a neurologist, a specialist, do an examination?
No one said I had to. No one said, they said I'm good.
Would you be willing to undergo an independent medical evaluation that included neurological and cognitive tests and release the results to the American people?
Look, I have a cognitive test every single day. Every day I have that test. Everything I do. Not only am I campaigning, but I'm running the world. And that's not how it sounds like hyperbole. But we are the essential nation in the world. Madeleine Albright was right. And every single day, for example, today, I'm on what weather's going to stay.
And the American people have been watching, yet their concerns about your age and your health are growing. So that's why I'm asking, to reassure them, would you be willing to have the independent medical evaluation?
Watch me between. There's a lot of time left in this campaign.
So again, I don't know why you can't just say yes, dude. I don't understand why you can't just be like, yes. I mean, that would S&P 555, that would easily put people's concerns to rest. Just be like, yes, sure. Like, also for all the people in the chat saying you have to talk the same about Trump, dude, at the end of the day, both candidates are not the best candidates, but one of these candidates is not functioning properly. And yes, Trump has his issues as well. No one's denying that. But this is like, just because you point out one person's bad doesn't mean you're obligated to point out the other person is bad as well. Both of them have their flaws. Both of them have their positives. The pressure is on Biden because at the end of the day, if he drops out, this changes the dynamics of how the election plays out, right? I mean, like right now, the market's pricing in a Trump victory is good for the markets. If Biden drops out, for example, and Bloomberg starts running, that changes the entire dynamics, especially for the stock market, because Bloomberg is actually pro-business and the Democrats might actually have a chance against Trump. But right now, every single national poll is saying that Trump is beating Biden. And so it's less about saying why Trump is good, why Trump is bad. It's more so talking about, is this guy going to continue to run? And does he have the capacity currently as president to be the president, to be the president? And as of right now, it just does not look like that. So I don't know, man. I think as much as we want to critique all the candidates right now, the light is on Biden. And we're going to have to see if this plays out. Right now, I just got a breaking news headline from the Wall Street Journal. Biden tells congressional Democrats in a letter he was committed to running the race to the end as calls for him to exit the contest grow louder. So Biden is not dropping out, apparently, based on messages he's sending to congressional Democrats. And that is why the market, I guess, is pricing in a little bit more of a Trump victory as well. Chris says, I'll import Margot Robbie level girls from all over the world if he was president. Margot Robbie is actually pregnant, for those that don't know. So for anyone who thought they had a chance with Margot Robbie, that's not happening. Thomas says, I think people are just frustrated because we are staring at two turds and saying this turd can't think right without acknowledging the other is also just a turd. Yeah, but I've acknowledged that both presidents suck. I think everyone in the chat can acknowledge both candidates suck. You know, like both are not the best candidates in the world. We all know this. And the unfortunate thing is we're going to have to pick between Trump and Biden. Like it is what it is. We're going to have to pick between Trump and Biden. So no one is saying, oh my God, Trump is the best Republican candidate ever or Biden is the best Democratic candidate ever. However, the guy who's running the candidacy cannot talk. If you watch the rest of the interview, like he is struggling to get through words. I was like watching it live and I was like holding my breath to see if he would finish his sentence. And like as an American citizen, that shouldn't be happening. So I think the question is not also, can you also critique Trump? I think the question is, do you think this current president can run? And if he can't, who is the alternative? Because ultimately the alternative has to beat Trump if you want Trump to lose. And I think that debate is never ending, at least because Biden's not dropping out. And so I guess we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. Is it going to be Kamala? I don't think it's going to be Kamala. I mean, I think the Democrats want it to be Kamala, but it's likely not going to be Kamala right now. Let's do a poll in the chat. Let's do a poll. We haven't done a poll in like a month. Let's do a poll. Let's see who everyone is voting for. Let's see what you guys are thinking right now, Trump or Biden. I know a lot of people are not Trump fans, but they just can't vote for Biden. And I know a lot of people are Trump fans and they don't love Biden. So let's see. Trump or Biden if you are voting. And even if you're not in the United States, you can still vote. And let's see, if you were in the United States, who would you vote for? Let's see. Many won't vote. Yeah, I mean, many are not going to vote either. But I do think this election is going to get a lot more people engaged because they're upset at either side. And so we are going to see, I think we're going to see record turnout, quite frankly. I don't think people are going to hold their vote. I think if you hate Trump, you're voting for Biden regardless. And if you hate Biden and you can't believe the Democrats are making him the candidate, you might end up voting for Trump. Or we just might see more people vote for RFK. I'm putting Trump or Biden as the only two options because it's if you had to choose between both. All right, so right now we got 74% Trump. So we got 70-30 Trump over Biden. I'm going to write down a mitt. That would be cool if I got a vote. I don't know, dude. We're going to see. At the end of the day, not Robinhood at 22.42, Palantir at 27.68. So Palantir trying to get back to 27.75. At the end of the day, both candidates are not amazing, but someone's going to win. And the thing about having apathy and not, feeling engaged in the political process is, unfortunately, this is how the U.S. operates. They give us these two choices, and a third party is just not winning. Like, I'm sorry to rain on people's parade, Jill Stein or RFK, they're not winning. They might take away votes, but they're not winning. It's just not possible in the United States. So if that's the case, then it's going to be one or the other. And I think we have to analyze which one has a realistic shot to win. It's a winner-take-all system. It absolutely is a winner-take-all system. So, what else do we have? Too bad Libertarian Party is not as popular. Yeah, well, we spend too much for the Libertarians to be popular. The Libertarians had a Palantir right here, 27.70. The Libertarians had a little bit of a revolution back in 2011 after Obamacare was passed. Obamacare passed the Affordable Care Act, and then the Libertarians, felt like he was passing the most socialist policy of all time, which it is democratically socialist, but it is not a socialist policy by any sense of the imagination. I mean, in the UK and Sweden, that's where they really have socialized healthcare. So the Tea Party started getting a lot more momentum in 2011, and that's what stopped Obama from passing any other policies. Because, Obama got the Affordable Care Act passed, and then for the next 5 years, basically, libertarians and Republicans stopped him from spending any more because they thought he spent so much on the Affordable Care Act. So that's the big major victory of the Obama 8-year presidency, and that really is his legacy. I don't think he has any other legacy besides that, quite frankly, because foreign policy was not as good as it could have been. But right now we're spending so much money. We're spending $1 trillion on debt every 100 days that I couldn't imagine the libertarians get back in power. Amit just said it isn't socialist, it's democratically socialist. Well, yes, that's true, because it's not literally socializing healthcare, because you still have private healthcare intertwined with things like the Affordable Care Act, which kind of guarantee, like, for example, one of the ways it's democratically socialist is because you can stay under your parents' healthcare until you're 26 under the Affordable Care Act. That didn't exist before the Affordable Care Act. So that is a socialist principle, right, of universalizing healthcare to all 26-year-olds. But then after you turn 26, you got to get your own healthcare, right? You can still get from the government, but you know what I'm saying? You can't be under your parents' healthcare anymore. So in the NHS, that doesn't exist, right? Across the world, if you have a more socialized healthcare system, there's not as much of a mingling of private healthcare, and there's not that much of a concern of if you're 26 years old or not 26 years old. I know this because I was under my mom's healthcare until I was 26. So that's why I think there's elements of it that are socialist, but a lot of it is primarily not socialist. Socialism is a spectrum, not as yeah, that's my point. It on the spectrum, it had some social elements to it. Otherwise, it's not. What was Trump's major victory? I would say Trump's major victory, being objective, was the tax cuts and probably the no wars. We didn't get into a war when Trump was president. With Obama, we were in a little bit too many wars. However, we had COVID. Now, granted, I'm a little bit different here. I know everyone blames Trump for COVID and all the jobs and the unemployment. I don't blame Trump for COVID, because I don't think, I wouldn't blame Biden or Obama for COVID either. It's COVID. That without getting into where you thought it came from, I don't think Trump created it. I don't think Biden created it. So it came out of nowhere, and Trump just had to deal with it. And if you believe in vaccines or not, within 6 months with Operation Warp Core, he got vaccines. So I don't really put COVID on Trump or Biden. I also don't give Biden a lot of credit for all the jobs we got, because those jobs were coming after the COVID rebound. And I don't give Trump a lot of losing credit for losing jobs, because of course, if the economy is going to shut down, you're going to lose a ton of jobs. So I think that's kind of a wash on both presidencies. But Biden has the infrastructure bill. That's kind of his major win. Trump has the tax cuts and foreign policy, no wars. That's his major win. And Biden has healthcare. Now, what will Kamala have if she wins? I don't know. If Kamala will end up being the president. Oh boy, there's going to be so much shit that happens, dude. I guess we're going to have to see. But the one thing we do know is that this election cycle is going to be, it's going to be kind of crazy, dude. It's going to be one of those cycles where either we're going to see, the entire world kind of get excited about a new presidency, and the markets get excited about Trump, or we're going to hold off with Biden. If Biden wins against Trump, given the state of position he is in right now, I think the market is unequivocally saying we don't trust Trump as president. Not the market, but the American people. And the market's going to have to figure out how to deal with that. But if Trump does win, then maybe it's just because the market can't handle Biden's state of nature right now. Okay, let's get back to CNBC and then we'll go to something else.
Is going to continue to say that you need to see a few more good inflation statistics numbers in the months ahead. I think he'll get them. I think inflation is all the trend lines look good, moving back to target, and I think he'll get the numbers he needs. And I would expect them to start cutting rates in September. Now, if I were on the Fed, I'd been arguing for rate cuts at the end of last year. I think they're taking an increasing risk of putting too much pressure on the economy and financial system and ultimately potentially breaking something. So, and I don't think that's necessary because the economy is at full employment. And again, inflation's headed back to target. But, you know, I'm not on the Fed and that they have a different judgment. But I think they'll have the evidence they need to start cutting rates in September.
So you feel like July sets the T for September then?
Yeah, I do. You know, I think look at one, you know, you were talking about the CPI number that we're going to get that on Thursday. That'll be a good number. I think the headline will be flat, 0, no increase. The core, excluding food and energy, will be up 0.2%. That's kind of right exactly where they would want to see it. So with that, I think they'll have enough to kind of lay the groundwork at the July meeting for a September rate cut.
What about we were talking about the other side.
So I'm going to transition here. Did you guys see the Ashwath clip from Friday? We watched it on the market close, but I think a lot of people haven't seen it. That was a hell of a clip. So Ashwath Damodaran, who is one of the guys that fundamentally thought the Mag 7 were overvalued 4 months ago, now he believes they're kind of valued fairly. I thought this was a really good take. And it's interesting because his perspective is the market can continue to raise higher because money's flowing in to the true quote unquote value stocks, which is the Mag 7. So let's take a look at his argument here.
President of Finance at NYU's Stern School of Business. Welcome back. It's nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I feel like, you know, it's becoming a bit of a broken record. I mean, we have you on. Tech stocks go up. NASDAQ extends its record high. And I ask you the same questions because they're the only questions that really seem to matter right now. But your answers might have changed because the stocks continue to go up and the valuations theoretically are getting more extended. How do you answer it now?
It's a bit like Groundhog Day. You're absolutely right. We talk about the same issues over and over. But collectively, these 7 stocks have had, I mean, it's not just the last 6 months. If you look at the last year and a half, they've added $8.8 trillion in market cap, just these 7 companies. Just to give you perspective, the second largest market in the world, China, is a market cap of $12.1 trillion. These 7 stocks alone have added more in market cap than the entire German market, the French market, the Swiss market. It's been an astonishing run. But I would also argue that before we dismiss these as risky tech companies, these are the money machines in this market. So when Jeremy Siegel talked about value stocks, I think in many ways, these have become the value stocks for investors who care about earnings and cash flows, because these are the companies that are delivering those earnings and cash flows.
Wow. So you don't necessarily think that we're in any kind of danger zone in terms of valuation here?
Now, if we're in a danger zone, it's not just 7 stocks are in the danger zone of tech stocks, it's a market overall. I mean, I compute a monthly market equity risk premium. It's my personal indicator of how hot or cold the market is. Start of July, that equity risk premium, the implied equity risk premium for the market is 4.11%. That's the lowest number it's been since September of 2008. In other words, it's almost as if the market has raised the last 15 years, and we're looking at numbers very much like what they used to be before the big crisis, the 2008 crisis. And the question we can ask is the market overreaching on that assumption? But a 4% T-bond rate and a 4.11% equity risk premium is 2005, 2006 numbers, not 2018 or 2019 numbers.
Does that tell you that we might be heading into a certain place we need to be aware of?
Yeah, I think we need to be careful. I think 4% to me is a red flag, at least from the numbers I've looked at historically. Once equity risk premiums drop below 4%, it's almost like a magnet pulling them back towards a 4%. So I'm going to track that number, and I track it at the start of every month. And at the moment, I think we're getting to a point where even pre-2008 status, you'd say this market is reaching a zone where you might need a correction to clean it up again.
I think what's interesting.
Okay, Bitcoin just fell. So again, Ashwath very bullish on the Mag 7 continuing to be the value stocks, given that quality keeps or the money keeps chasing quality, and those are the best quality. Bitcoin right here fell from 56 to 55.13. So that's down. All the crypto stocks are likely down on that. Nvidia taking a breather at 128, Tesla 251. So it tried to break at 253. Now it's red for the day. Let's see if it can hold 250. Palantir still holding 27.5. Still holding it, topped at 27.78. IWM down a little bit, but it's still up about 1%. Broadcom's up 1%. Market's taking a broader breather, but it is green for the day. S&P at 555.32, down from 556. I mean, it's not a bad day. It's not a bad day. It's not bad. Bitcoin just crashed down to 54. It's not at 54. I don't think it's at 54K, but it's at 50. Well, it looks like it wants to head to 54, 55,300. Oh boy, Bitcoin. All right, so this week's going to be really important because the Fed is going to be, the chair of the Fed, Jay Powell, is going to be testifying. We'll see what happens with him. Palantir and Tesla trying to maintain 27 and 250. So we'll see if money keeps flowing into these guys. And then CPI on Thursday might be what takes Tesla to 260, Palantir to 30, or it takes Palantir to 25 and Tesla back to 230. So this Thursday is going to be one of the most important weeks, or one of the most important days this week, to see what happens. Keith, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. He said saving the economy due to the subprime mortgage crisis, that was Obama's legacy or major victory, and the war was going prior to him being in office. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, obviously he inherited a recession and was able to stimulate the economy and get out of that recession. So that is that. And I think the ACA is probably the biggest parts of his presidency. And then thank you, Zian and Hippie. I didn't see that you guys became channel members. Thank you for becoming channel members as well. $28 Palantir covered calls making me scared. LOL, they expire at the end of the month. In general, for covered calls, when you roll them on a green day, you get more premium. But if you wait till the expiration, either they expire worthless or they or you get a better premium given you're at the end of the contract. So I mean, 28, if you have till the end of the month, I would let it, wait till the end of the month. Earnings is in August, not in July. So there's no catalyst until the end of the month. So if it pumps, it pumps and you can roll at the end of the month, or it might take a bit of a breather. So good thing is you're at 28, not 27. So you're still out of the money on those, and we'll see if it goes there as the theta, as Michael says, comes down. Cool. So yeah, I think that's it, dude. Exciting day. $28. Nice to see on Palantir. We did break above it. Now we just got to see if it comes back down to 25, 26, or if we can maintain that $27 level. And then Tesla right here, 251. Let's see if we can get or stay at least above 27 or 257, 250, and then Palantir 27 for the rest of the day. All right, cool. Not bad. I'll see you guys at 3:45. We'll be back for another market close. Again, tomorrow, Jay Powell's testifying. So tomorrow's going to be an important day for Jay Powell. We'll see. I did say, I put on Twitter, what dumb questions do you think Congress is going to ask him? I think they're probably going to ask about why you haven't cut rates yet. So that'll be funny. But besides that, Thursday CPI will be important to see what happens from there. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys at 3:45 in a couple hours, and we'll keep going from there. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.